The forest was quiet under the silver light of the full moon, every shadow stretching like a living thing among the gnarled trees. A chill wind whispered through the branches, carrying the scent of damp earth and distant danger. Ilara crouched behind a thick oak, her chest rising and falling with careful breaths. In front of her, a small clearing glimmered in the moonlight, where a lone pup shivered under a cloak of darkness. Ilara's fingers trembled as she reached for the little creature. Its fur was soft, black as night, and its tiny body shook with fear. She had found it wandering alone, abandoned perhaps, and something deep inside her told her she couldn't leave it there. The stories of the pack that ruled the forest had always frightened her, but the sight of the helpless pup was stronger than any fear. "Easy, little one," she whispered, wrapping the pup in her coat. The creature whimpered but didn't struggle, as if it understood she meant no harm. She could feel the warmth of its tiny body against her chest, and for a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. But the stillness shattered the instant she heard it. A low, dangerous growl rolling through the air like thunder. Ilara froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The shadows seemed to shift, and a figure emerged from the darkness, massive and terrifying. Kale, the alpha of the pack, stepped into the clearing, his presence commanding every inch of space around him. His eyes glowed faintly under the moon, and his jaw was set in a line of controlled fury. "You took my pup." His voice was low, each word sharp and deliberate. The wind carried it straight to her, and despite the fear curling in her stomach, something else, something strange, stirred in her chest. Ilara clutched the pup closer. I thought it was alone. It was going to die if I left it here," she said, her voice shaking but steady. Kale's nostrils flared as he stepped closer. Every movement he made was filled with power, as if the forest itself obeyed him. He crouched slightly, not lowering his size but making himself seem more like a predator ready to strike. "You don't take what belongs to my pack," he growled. "You do not understand the laws of the forest, human." "I understand life," Ilara said softly, her gaze meeting his. "And I couldn't let it die." Kale's eyes narrowed. He could sense the human's courage, but more than that. Something else tugged at his instincts. Her scent reached him in a way no other humans ever had. It was impossible against all rules of nature, but it marked her, claimed her in a way he could not ignore. His body stiffened, part of him wanting to strike, part of him wanting to know more. "You are not ordinary," he said, his voice lower now, almost uncertain. His hand hovered in the air, neither reaching for violence nor fully restrained. The pup stirred, sensing Kale's presence but not afraid. It pressed closer to Ilara, and that simple act seemed to draw a flicker of something unfamiliar across Kale's features, something softer than anger. Ilara took a cautious step back. "I don't want trouble," she said. I just want to keep it safe." Kale studied her carefully, every instinct in his body telling him she should not be here. She should fear him. She should run. Yet the connection he felt, the pull of fate in her scent, was undeniable. He had never met a human like her, never one who could survive his forest, his presence, and remain steadfast. "You understand little of what you touch," Kyle said, circling slowly around her, his eyes never leaving hers. "This pup is not what you think. Its blood carries power, ancient power that is tied to my pack." Ilara's brow furrowed. "Power? I just want to protect it." "I didn't know." "You will learn," Kale interrupted, his tone sharper now, but there was a hint of curiosity beneath the hardness. He crouched, bringing himself slightly closer to her level, his gaze intense. "And yet you risked everything for it. Why?" Ilara swallowed, her hands tightening around the pup. "Because it's alive. Because it has a right to live just like anyone." Kale's jaw tensed. Her answer was simple, almost naive, but it carried a weight he had not expected. Her courage, her defiance, her compassion, they were all dangerous in their own way. He felt the stirrings of a bond forming, a pull that ran deeper than instinct. It unsettled him, made his control waver. He inhaled sharply, and the scent of her hit him fully this time. His vision blurred slightly, his heartbeat quickened. She was his mate, not by choice, not by tradition, but by something older than time itself. The realization struck him with the force of a storm. He could punish her, bind her, and enforce the laws of his pack, but now he knew it would be wrong to do so. Ilara noticed the change immediately, though she could not understand it. The growl in his chest softened, almost imperceptibly, and his eyes lingered on her in a way that made her skin tingle. She took a cautious step closer. "What is happening?" she whispered, unsure if she meant the forest, the pup, or the alpha himself. Kale's teeth bared slightly, not in attack but in thought. You should not be here, he said. And yet, I cannot turn away the bond. It is here and it cannot be denied. Alara's heart raced. She didn't understand what he meant, but the intensity in his gaze was undeniable. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath around them. The pup whimpered softly, nudging against her chest, grounding her in the moment. Kyle finally stepped back, though he kept his eyes on her. I will spare you. For now, he said, his voice steady but his mind in turmoil. But understand this. The bond that has been awakened between us changes everything. You will remain under my protection whether you want it or not. Alara's eyes widened. Protection? You don't get a choice, Kyle said, interrupting her softly, almost reluctantly. Not anymore. Your presence here has set fate into motion. You have taken more than a pup. You have taken a place in my life. And nothing can undo it. The forest seemed to shift with his words, shadows twisting in the moonlight as though acknowledging the weight of what had been spoken. Alara's pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to run, to flee the danger, but something in her refused. She could feel the pull between them, the unspoken connection that ran deeper than fear or anger. Kale turned his gaze to the pup, which had nestled closer to Alara, as if sensing the change. This creature, he murmured. It will teach you many things about courage, about the forest, and about me. Alara blinked, not sure if she should be reassured or terrified. Teach me? She echoed. Yes, Kale said simply. And in return you will teach me things I have long forgotten. The wind howled through the trees, carrying their words into the night. For a moment silence enveloped them, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the pup's quiet breathing. Kale stepped closer again, slowly, cautiously. Know this, human, he said, his voice low and commanding. You have crossed into a world that is not meant for your kind. But fate has marked you. The bond has been sown and it cannot be ignored. Alara swallowed hard, feeling both fear and a strange warmth rising in her chest. Then what happens now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kale's eyes softened just slightly, though the power and intensity in them remained. Now, he said, you survive the night, and we both begin a journey neither of us expected. The moonlight shifted, casting silver shadows across the forest floor. The pup nestled into Alara's coat, sensing the presence of something far greater than itself. And for the first time, both human and alpha felt the undeniable truth. What had begun as theft had awakened a bond older than memory, a force neither could deny. As Kale vanished back into the trees, leaving only the echo of his presence and the weight of destiny behind, Alara realized she was no longer alone. Something powerful, dangerous, and inevitable had entered her life, and it would not let her go. Cliffhanger. Somewhere deeper in the forest, Kale paused and inhaled sharply. The scent of his mate clung to the air, and he knew the hunt was over, but the bond had only begun. The night was far from finished, and neither of them would be the same by dawn. The sun barely touched the forest floor when Alara awoke to the distant cries of the pups. Ash stirred in her arms, yawning and stretching, and she felt a strange warmth of responsibility settle over her. Life in the pack stronghold was no longer about her alone. She had become part of something larger, something powerful, and the weight of it both excited and frightened her. Kale was already awake, standing at the edge of the cliff that overlooked the forest. His posture was tense, eyes scanning the treetops as if he could sense the movements of the world beyond. He had returned to his human form, but the strength in his body, the subtle tension of his muscles, spoke of the wolf that lingered beneath his skin. Alara, he called, his voice carrying over the wind. Come, it is time you learned more about the pack, its laws, and your role. Alara rose, holding Ash close. Her heart pounded in anticipation. She had survived the first encounter, the theft, and the revelation of the bond, but she knew that the real trials were only beginning. The walk through the stronghold brought her past chambers lined with ancient runes and walls carved with symbols of power. Each step seemed to whisper history, secrets of past alphas, past bonds, and the consequences of disobedience. She felt a mixture of awe and fear. Here, every stone had a story, and every story carried a warning. Kale stopped at a wide hall where several pack members waited. Their eyes were sharp, assessing her with suspicion, curiosity, and in some cases outright hostility. A young female wolf shifter stepped forward, her stance defensive. "You are human," she said. "Yet you carry one of ours. Why should we trust you?" Elara met her gaze steadily. "I did not steal to harm," she said. "I only wanted to save him." A ripple of murmurs went through the room. Kyle stepped forward, placing a protective hand lightly on her shoulder. "She is bound to me," he said, his tone firm and unyielding. "That bond is sacred. She will prove herself to the pack." The elders, including the silver-haired matriarch, observed silently. They had not expected Kale's defiance, nor had they anticipated the strength of the bond that now pulsed visibly between human and alpha. "Then let the trials begin," the matriarch said finally. "If she is to remain, she must show her courage, her loyalty, and her compassion. Only then will she be accepted." The first trial was physical, a test of courage and endurance. Elara had to navigate the forest under the supervision of the pack, facing obstacles meant to challenge strength, agility, and resolve. Thorny undergrowth tore at her clothing and shadows moved as though alive, whispering doubts and fears. The pack watched silently, assessing every movement, every choice she made. Kyle followed at a distance, his eyes never leaving her. He noted how she struggled but persisted, how her hands shook yet never let go of Ash when the pup scampered near danger. He felt an unexpected pride, a stir in his chest that was both tender and alarming. This human, fragile by appearance, carried herself with courage that rivaled his fiercest warriors. When she reached the clearing at the heart of the forest, she found herself facing a pack of wild wolves. They circled, low growls rumbling in their throats, eyes glinting with hunger and curiosity. Elara froze for a heartbeat, fear gripping her. Then she remembered Kale's presence, the bond that tied them and the trust he had placed in her. She knelt, letting Ash crawl from her arms. "Peace," she whispered, voice trembling but clear. The wolves paused, tilting their heads. Slowly she extended a hand, showing no threat. One by one the wolves approached, sniffing cautiously, until they settled around her without aggression. Kale appeared then, stepping into the clearing. His eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight that had begun to filter through the trees, and he exhaled softly. "Well done," he said. "You passed the first test. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it." Elara looked at him, her breath still quick. I was scared," she admitted. He studied her, noting the honesty in her voice. "Good. Fear keeps you alive. Courage allows you to live beyond it." The next trial was a test of loyalty. Elara had to care for the pups while navigating the pack's rituals, balancing obedience with her instincts. Some of the wolves tried to test her, nudging boundaries, watching for mistakes. Kale observed closely, his body tense, ready to intervene, but he restrained himself. This was her path, not his. Yet the bond between them grew with each moment. Kale could feel it in the air, in the pull of the pup toward her, in the subtle shifts of energy when she was near. It was overwhelming, a force he could not control. His wolf stirred beneath the skin, restless and hungry, but Kale forced himself to remain calm. The alpha must always remain in control, and yet, he was learning that control was becoming a fragile thing. During a quiet moment, he approached her, keeping his voice low. "You are doing well," he said. "But understand this, the bond we share is not simple. It is old, powerful, and it will demand more from you than courage or loyalty. It will demand your heart." Elara swallowed, unsure of how to respond. Her heart was already racing, tied inexplicably to him, to Ash, to the pack itself. She felt the weight of destiny pressing down, and yet a spark of excitement ran through her. I will do what I must," she said finally, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. The final trial came at night. A rival pack, jealous and envious, sought to challenge Kale's authority. Elara was tasked with aiding Kale while also protecting the pups and maintaining the trust of the pack. As the rival pack approached, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Shadows moved unnaturally, and the tension was palpable. Kale transformed under the moonlight, powerful and terrifying in wolf form, and Elara followed as best she could, guided by instinct and the strange bond that tethered her to him. They moved together, human and wolf, navigating the chaos of the attack. The rival pack tested them, but Kale and Elara worked in tandem. Her courage, quick thinking, and connection to Ash proved invaluable. When the rival pack finally retreated, silence fell over the forest. Ilara sank to her knees, exhausted but exhilarated. Kale, returning to human form, looked at her with a mixture of relief, admiration, and something deeper, something he had never felt before. "You have passed the trials," he said quietly. "You have shown courage, loyalty, and compassion. More importantly, you have shown strength. You are not just a human in this forest. You are part of the pack, part of the bond, part of me." Ilara looked at him, unsure whether to feel proud or overwhelmed. I didn't expect any of this," she admitted. Kyle's eyes softened, and for a moment the fierce alpha vanished, replaced by something vulnerable, almost human. "Neither did I," he said. "The bond, it is stronger than I imagined. And now there is no turning back. We face the future together, whatever it may hold." As the moon climbed higher, casting silver light over the forest, a distant howl echoed. It was a warning, a challenge, and a reminder that danger never truly slept. Yet for the first time, Ilara felt a sense of belonging, of purpose, and of connection to something beyond herself. She was no longer just a human in the forest. She was part of a destiny older than memory, tied irrevocably to Kale and the pack. Cliffhanger. As they returned to the stronghold, Kale paused, nostrils flaring. Another scent had entered the forest, one that carried both threat and mystery. Kale's eyes darkened, and Ilara realized with a shiver that their trials were far from over. Something or someone was coming, and the bond they shared would be tested in ways neither could yet imagine. The forest had grown darker in the days since the trials. Mist clung to the trees like pale fingers, and the wind whispered secrets of danger and change. Ilara had begun to feel the rhythm of life within the pack, learning the customs, the silent language of the wolves, and the subtle shifts of power that governed the forest. Still, the tension never fully left her. Danger was never far, and Kale's presence reminded her constantly of the bond that had reshaped her life. Kale watched her from a distance as she tended to Ash. The pup had grown stronger, a symbol of resilience and the connection that now tied Ilara to him. He noted her careful movements, her steady hands, and the quiet courage she showed in every action. Yet, beneath his measured calm, Kale wrestled with the alpha within, the part of him that had been taught to rule with strength and fear, not with trust and tenderness. A sudden howl split the morning air. Kale's ears twitched, and he moved like a shadow through the trees, alert and tense. "Trouble," he muttered. "They come for us." Ilara's heart jumped. "Who?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Rival packs," Kale said, his eyes scanning the horizon. "They sense weakness. They sense opportunity. We must be ready." Ilara followed him, Ash cradled safely in her arms. As they reached the edge of the cliff that overlooked the valley, Kale stopped and turned to her. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried weight. "You have grown through the trials," he said. "But the true test comes now. You must act not only with courage but with sacrifice. To protect what you care for, you may need to risk yourself." Ilara nodded, her pulse quickening. She understood. The bond was more than connection. It was responsibility, duty, and an unspoken promise. She had chosen this path when she took the pup, and now there was no turning back. The rival pack emerged from the mist, moving with silent precision. They were larger, more numerous, and their eyes glimmered with hunger and challenge. Kale's posture stiffened, muscles coiled and ready. He shifted into his wolf form under the rising sun, a towering figure of strength and power. His fur shimmered with a faint silver hue, eyes glowing with intensity. Ilara's hands trembled as she knelt, whispering to Ash. "Stay close, little one," she said. The pup whined softly, sensing the tension in the air. Kale growled low and threatening, warning the rival pack to stay back. Yet they did not retreat. Instead, they advanced, circling, testing the alpha's defenses. Ilara could feel the fear in her chest, but it was tempered by the bond that tied her to Kale, an invisible thread of shared strength and instinct. The battle began, but Kale did not fight alone. Ilara moved carefully, using the forest to her advantage. She guided Ash to safety while keeping an eye on the movements of the rival pack. Her courage surprised even her, and Kale noticed it, a flicker of pride mingling with the raw intensity of the fight. One of the rival wolves lunged at Kale, faster than expected. In that instant, Ilara saw an opening. She stepped forward, shouting a warning that broke the rhythm of the forest. Kale caught it immediately, twisting mid-leap and avoided the attack. Yet in that moment he realized the depth of trust the bond demanded. Ilara's instincts were now part of his world, and he could not act recklessly without considering her safety. As the skirmish continued, the rival pack began to retreat, sensing they could not overcome the alpha and the bond he shared with his mate. Kale returned to human form, breathing heavily but uninjured. His eyes, however, sought Ilara immediately. Relief and something else, something softer, passed through his expression. "You risked yourself," he said quietly, almost accusingly. "Do you understand what that means?" Ilara's chest heaved with the exertion of the moment. "I understand more than I ever thought I could," she said. "I couldn't let anything happen to you. Or Ash." Kyle stepped closer, the tension in his body easing slightly. "It is not just courage that binds you to this forest," he said. "It is wisdom, sacrifice, and heart. You have shown all three, but the world beyond this forest will challenge you even more. The bond is not safe from the eyes of others." Ilara looked at him, her chest tightening. "Then we face it together," she said. Her voice carried determination, but also something deeper: trust, hope, and the acknowledgement of the bond that now tied their fates together. The following days were quieter, but no less tense. Kale allowed her to move more freely within the stronghold, teaching her the secrets of the forest, the rituals of the pack, and the ways of the alpha. Ilara absorbed everything, learning not just the survival skills she needed, but the subtleties of trust, instinct, and presence that marked a true mate. Kyle, in turn, struggled with his own transformation. The alpha who had once ruled through fear and power now found himself learning to protect, to guide, and to trust in ways he had never imagined. He caught himself studying her when she thought he wasn't looking, noting how her hair caught the light, how her eyes focused on Ash, how her determination never faltered even in the face of danger. It unsettled him, stirred emotions he had long suppressed, and reminded him that strength was not only in dominance, but in connection. Then came the call that neither could ignore. A human village at the edge of the forest had captured some of the pack members. They sought to leverage the alpha, demanding surrender or else threatening the lives of innocents. Kale's eyes darkened, his instincts roaring for immediate action. Ilara, though frightened, stepped forward. "We can't just wait," she said. "We need a plan." Kale studied her, the wind carrying the scent of her determination. She had grown so much since the night he had first found her with the pup. The bond pulsed strongly, guiding him, reminding him that she was no longer merely a human intruder. She was part of the pack, part of the forest, and now part of him. Together, they devised a plan. Ilara would lead a distraction, drawing the villagers' attention while Kale and the pack freed the captives. It was risky, but the bond had taught Kale that trust required action. He had to believe in her as she had come to believe in him. The night of the mission, the forest was thick with fog. Ilara moved silently, guided by the instincts Kale had helped her develop. Her heart pounded, but each beat reminded her that she was not alone. Kale was near, watching, and the bond between them hummed with energy and purpose. The villagers were caught off guard. Ilara's presence, her clever movements, and the subtle command of her courage created confusion and hesitation. In that moment, she saw Kale move among the captives, freeing them with precise, controlled power. The pup, Ash, stayed close to her side, a constant reminder of why she fought. When the last captive was freed, Kale and Ilara converged, moving with seamless coordination. The villagers retreated, their attempts to fight disrupted by the unexpected force of both human ingenuity and alpha power. Breathing heavily, Kale turned to Ilara, his expression unreadable yet full of emotion. "You have saved lives tonight," he said. "And in doing so, you have proven your place in this pack, in this forest, and in my life." Ilara felt a flush rise to her cheeks. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance," she said quietly. Kale shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "You did this because of your own courage, your own heart. The bond guided you, yes, but you acted. You chose sacrifice when it was needed, and that is why you are mine." Ilara's breath caught at the words. She had never heard anything so powerful, so certain. The forest around them seemed to hum in agreement, the wind rustling leaves as though whispering its approval. Kyle reached for her hand, hesitating for only a heartbeat before placing it lightly against his chest. "The bond is no longer a secret," he said. "And it is not safe from those who would see it broken, but you have my trust, my protection, and my recognition. That will not change." Ilara looked into his eyes, seeing the Alpha and the man beneath, the protector and the one bound by fate. "I trust you," she whispered, "and I will face whatever comes next." The wind howled through the forest, carrying the echo of destiny. The bond between them had grown stronger through courage, sacrifice, and trust. And though the night was quiet now, both knew that trials were far from over. Something was coming, closer, darker, and more dangerous than anything they had faced. Cliffhanger. Kale's nostrils flared sharply as a new scent entered the forest. It was neither human nor wolf. Something ancient, powerful, and threatening moved in the shadows. Kale's eyes darkened, and he knew their bond would be tested in ways neither he nor Ilara could yet imagine. The forest held its breath, and the true danger of fate was only beginning. The forest seemed alive in a way that made Ilara uneasy. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig carried the possibility of danger. Yet as she followed Kale through the dense shadows, she felt a strange sense of protection in his presence. Though his gaze was sharp and commanding, it no longer carried only the threat of wrath. It was deeper, almost questioning. Kale led her to the pack's stronghold, a fortress built into the cliffs and twisted roots of the ancient forest. The stone walls seemed to rise from the earth itself, entwined with silvered vines that glimmered under the moonlight. The air smelled of wet stone and wild magic, and Ilara felt the pulse of power in every corner. Here the supernatural presence was undeniable, and humans were not often welcomed. "You will remain here until I decide your fate," Kale said, his voice carrying authority that made the air vibrate. "Do not try to run. The forest will not let you." Ilara nodded, clutching the pup close. I will not." Kale's eyes softened slightly, though his tension did not ease. He sensed her courage, her willingness to face a world far beyond her understanding, and it unsettled him in ways he could not name. The scent of her lingered, a reminder that the bond was real and binding. His wolf instincts growled softly, warning him of the power of fate, and yet he could not act on that warning fully. Not yet. Inside the stronghold, the pack's elders waited. Tall, imposing figures, their eyes sharp and cold, they studied Ilara as if she were both a curiosity and a threat. Murmurs filled the chamber as Kale approached. "Alpha," one elder said, his voice heavy with authority. "You bring a human into our midst. Do you not understand the consequences? Human mates are forbidden. They disrupt the balance of our laws, and their presence can bring ruin." Kyle's jaw tightened. "I understand the laws," he said, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "Yet fate has marked her. I will not punish what destiny has chosen." The elders exchanged wary glances, their unease growing. One of them, a silver-haired female with eyes as sharp as blades, stepped forward. "Fate does not absolve you of duty, Kale. If the bond is real, it will bring trials that you cannot yet foresee. You must consider the safety of your pack above all." Kale's gaze fell to Ilara. The pup stirred in her arms, and he saw the warmth in her eyes. Not fear, not submission, but strength and determination. "I will consider the pack," he said, "but I will also honor what the bond demands." Ilara felt the weight of their eyes on her, and a shiver ran down her spine. She was aware of her vulnerability, a human in a world ruled by powerful, immortal beings. Yet she also felt the strange pull toward Kale, a force that seemed older than the forest itself. It frightened her, and yet she could not resist it. Later, Kale escorted her to a small chamber within the stronghold. The walls were lined with ancient runes that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The pup curled up in her lap, and she stroked its fur, trying to calm both it and herself. "You must understand something," Kyle said, his voice softer now, almost hesitant. "Being marked as my mate, it is not simple. It carries responsibilities. It is not a gift. It is a bond that will change your life entirely." Ilara looked up at him, her eyes wide. I don't know if I can understand it, but I feel something. Something I cannot explain." Kale's gaze softened. "You will. Time will teach you. But know this, you are no longer just a human in my forest. You are tied to me and through me to the pack. You must be careful. Trust will become as important as courage, and it may be tested more than you imagine." Days passed in a strange mixture of tension and curiosity. Kale observed Ilara constantly, sometimes from the shadows, sometimes with quiet presence beside her. He watched as she cared for the pup, naming it Ash, and noticed how naturally the pup responded to her touch. The connection between human and pup was undeniable, a reflection of the deeper bond he could not ignore. Ilara, in turn, noticed Kale's subtle changes. The alpha, who had been terrifying in the moonlit clearing, now revealed glimpses of restraint, curiosity, and even compassion. She saw how he protected her from minor threats in the stronghold, and how his gaze softened when he thought she wasn't watching. Her fear began to mingle with something more complicated, something like fascination, respect, and the faint stirrings of trust. One night, the wind carried an unusual scent into the stronghold, sharp and unsettling. Kale stiffened immediately, ears twitching in the shadows. "Trouble," he murmured. "The forest senses it. Be ready." Ilara felt her pulse quicken. "What is it?" Kale's eyes were dark and unreadable. Danger from humans, from the forest, from those who would see this bond broken. The following night brought the test. A rival pack, envious of Kale's authority, crept near the stronghold, their presence cloaked in shadows. Kale sensed their approach and immediately moved to protect both the stronghold and Ilara. He transformed into his wolf form under the moonlight. Powerful and imposing, his fur bristling with raw energy. Ilara watched, frozen yet transfixed as the alpha leapt through the night with grace and power beyond imagination. She had never seen anything like it, and a part of her realized that despite the danger she was safer because of him. Yet the intensity of the moment stirred something else, fear, excitement, and the undeniable pull between them. When the rival pack retreated, Kyle returned to his human form, breathing heavily but uninjured. He turned to Ilara and she saw the flicker of relief mixed with something else, something almost tender. "You were brave," he said softly, and for the first time his words felt personal, not merely an acknowledgement of courage. Ilara's lips parted in surprise. I didn't think I was brave. I just..." She trailed off, unsure of what to say, but the pup nestled against her, grounding her in the moment. Kyle stepped closer, the moonlight casting his shadow long across the floor. "You are brave," he said, his voice low and firm, "and you will need more courage in the days to come. The bond we share, it will be tested, and it will demand more from you than you know." Ilara swallowed hard, feeling both fear and an unexpected thrill. The bond, the pull she felt, was no longer a simple curiosity. It was a force that had begun to shape both her and Kale. She could feel it in every glance, every brush of his presence, every subtle movement. The following morning, Kale took her to the high cliffs overlooking the forest. The wind whipped around them and the rising sun painted the sky in shades of gold and red. "This forest," he said, "is home to many things you do not understand. But it is also a place of life, of strength, and of destiny. You must learn to see it as it is, not as you imagine it." Ilara nodded, her eyes fixed on the vast expanse below. "I will try," she said quietly. "I want to understand..." "Everything." Kale's gaze softened as he watched her. "Good, you will need to. The trials are only beginning, and the bond we share, it is not just mine and it is not just yours. It belongs to the forest, to the pack, and to destiny itself." The pup barked softly and Kale glanced at it, a rare hint of warmth flickering in his expression. "Ash has chosen you," he said, almost to himself. "And by choosing you, it has sealed what I already know. You are my mate, whether we accept it or not." Ilara's breath caught. "Mate?" she whispered, the word foreign and heavy with meaning. Kale's gaze held hers, unwavering. "Yes, the bond has been awakened and it cannot be denied. You will see its strength soon enough, in ways you cannot yet imagine." The wind howled through the cliffs and the forest seemed to echo his words. Ilara felt a mixture of fear and anticipation, unsure of what lay ahead but unable to turn away. Something ancient and powerful had begun between them, and the pull of destiny was relentless. Cliffhanger. As Kale turned back toward the stronghold, a shadow moved in the trees below. Someone or something watched them. The forest held its breath, and Ilara realized with a shiver that the bond between them had drawn attention, and danger was coming, closer and more unpredictable than before. The forest had grown unnaturally quiet. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, as though holding its breath in anticipation of what was coming. Ilara felt it first, a shift in the air, subtle yet impossible to ignore. The bond between her and Kale thrummed with tension, warning her of danger that was both near and unlike anything they had faced before. Cale's senses were sharper than ever. He moved silently through the mist-shrouded forest, his eyes glowing faintly with the light of his wolf nature. Ash trotted beside Alara, alert and tense, aware that the forest held more than just shadows. Cale's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, a grounding touch, a silent promise that no matter what came, he would protect her. "There is something here," Cale murmured, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air. "Not human. Not wolf. Old, very old." Alara's heart quickened. What do we do?" Cale's jaw tightened. "We face it. Together." They reached the clearing at the center of the forest where the mist curled around ancient stones, runes glowing faintly in the dim light. The air pulsed with power, and the hairs on the back of Alara's neck rose. The presence was tangible, heavy, commanding, and alive with something beyond their understanding. From the shadows emerged a figure, tall and cloaked, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Alara could feel the aura of command radiating from it, the quiet menace that made even Cale's wolf instincts growl in caution. "You have grown strong," the figure said, voice echoing like wind through the trees. "But bonds forged in fear will be tested by fire. Only one can survive and claim the right to destiny." Cale's eyes narrowed. "We are no fools," he said. "We do not fear trials. The bond between us is stronger than any threat." The figure stepped closer and Alara felt a chill. Stronger, perhaps, but untested? That remains to be seen. Suddenly, the figure moved faster than the eye could follow, and the clearing erupted into a whirlwind of power. The ground trembled, ancient trees bending under unseen forces. Alara clutched Ash to her chest, watching Cale shift into his wolf form, muscles rippling, eyes burning with power. The bond between them pulsed, and she felt it deep in her chest. Strength, courage, and connection beyond comprehension. Alara closed her eyes and focused, feeling the pull of the bond. It was not just Cale guiding her. It was the forest, the pups, the very air around them. She realized that courage was not only about facing danger with strength. It was about standing with heart, trusting in the bond that tied them together. When she opened her eyes, she stepped forward. "We will not be broken," she said, voice steady, carrying through the clearing. "No threat can undo what is real." Cale growled in approval, circling the figure, testing, measuring, and waiting. The figure responded in kind, a duel of instincts and raw power that shook the forest floor. Alara realized that this was not just a fight. It was a test of destiny itself, and the bond she shared with Cale was the key. The figure lunged, but Cale was faster, intercepting with precision and control. Alara stayed close, guiding Ash to safety while observing the rhythm of the battle. She saw the way Cale moved, the harmony between wolf and human instinct, and understood something fundamental. The bond was not just connection, it was unity, a force that allowed them to face what no one else could. As the clash continued, the figure revealed a weapon, a staff that glowed with ancient energy. Each strike sent tremors through the earth. Kyle dodged and countered, but even his strength was tested to the limit. Alara stepped closer, feeling the pulse of the bond. She reached out, her hands almost instinctively glowing with the energy that had begun to awaken in her during the trials. The bond responded to her courage, and Cale's eyes widened as he saw the power emerging from her. "Do it," Cale called, sensing the timing. "The bond will guide you." Alara concentrated, feeling the pulse of the forest, the rhythm of the earth, and the connection with Kyle and Ash. She channeled her courage, her trust, and her will into a single force. The energy surged from her hands, connecting with Cale, flowing through the bond and striking the figure. The light was blinding, the air thick with power. When the glow faded, the figure was gone, leaving only silence and the rustling of the leaves. Cale returned to human form, breathing heavily, but his eyes were full of awe. He looked at Alara, and for the first time his face softened completely, revealing a depth of emotion he had never shown. You did that," he said quietly, voice thick with wonder. I never imagined you could hold such strength." Ilara's chest heaved with exhaustion and relief. I only did what I had to," she said, her voice trembling. "Because of the bond." "Because of you?" "Because of Ash." Kyle stepped closer, his hands reaching for hers. The forest seemed to hold its breath as he lifted her hand to his chest. "The bond is no longer just a connection," he said, eyes locked on hers. It is our strength, our unity, and our destiny. You have proven yourself beyond fear, beyond doubt. You are truly mine as I am yours." Elara felt tears prick her eyes. I feel it too," she whispered. "I've never known anything like this. I feel whole." Kale smiled, a rare, unguarded expression that melted the tension of centuries of alpha rule. "Then we face the future together," he said. "No threat, no shadow, no destiny can undo this bond." Ash barked happily, nuzzling Alara's side, and the pups emerged from the trees, sensing the calm and safety restored. The forest seemed to breathe with them, the ancient power settling into harmony once more. Over the following days, Kale and Elara solidified their bond, learning more about each other, the pack, and the ancient magic that surrounded them. They walked the forest together, their presence a symbol of unity, trust, and love forged through trials. The bond was no longer a secret. It was a force recognized by the pack, the forest, and destiny itself. Yet even in moments of peace, both remained vigilant. The forest was old, powerful, and unpredictable. Shadows might return, new challenges might arise, but Kale and Elara knew that together they could face anything. The bond had been tested, and it had proven unbreakable. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, casting long shadows across the forest floor, Kale and Elara stood atop the cliffs. Ash frolicked nearby, and the pups tumbled in playful chaos. Kale reached for Elara, taking her hand. "This is only the beginning," he said, voice low and full of promise. "The bond will guide us, protect us, and shape the future. We are no longer just alpha and human. We are mate and mate, protector and heart, united beyond the bounds of fear." Elara smiled, feeling a warmth she had never known. "Then I'm ready," she said. "Ready for whatever comes, as long as we are together." The forest whispered around them, leaves rustling like a song of blessing. The moon rose, silver and bright, reflecting on the river that wound through the valley below. In that moment, Elara felt the full depth of the bond, the courage, the love, the unity, and the destiny that now tied her to Kale and the pack. Final cliffhanger resolution. As they watched the moonlight dance across the forest, Kale's ears twitched. Another presence stirred in the distance, subtle but undeniable. Yet this time, neither fear nor doubt touched them. The bond between them was stronger than any threat, older than any challenge, and unbreakable. Whatever the future held, Kale and Elara would face it together, their hearts and destinies forever entwined. The forest, ancient and wise, seemed to approve. And for the first time, Elara felt not only belonging but purpose, power, and love. A bond that had survived trials, danger, and destiny itself, sealing her place as Kale's mate and protector of the pack.